the Bell. Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu, counting you down to the closing bell. Here to help take us beyond the bell. It's our global simulcast with our friends Carol Massar and Madison Mills. Welcome to our audiences across Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Originals, and those folks streaming on YouTube. Not far off the lows of the day right now, Carol, on stocks. The only bright spot really is a small cohort of tech stocks, including Microsoft.
Yeah, and that also includes Meta, which is going to report any moment from now. This is a name that's up, 74% so far. And we know it's been taking a beating before that, but nonetheless, quite a rally that we're seeing here in 2023. And it's up about another 1% in today's trade, guys.
Yeah, and those big tech names are sort of driving some of the rally, but not all of tech is in a happy phase today. We're seeing that the semiconductor subsector is just eking out a gain, and technology hardware is posting losses today as well, Scar.
I just want to follow up on Meta because we were talking with David Bahnsen earlier, and he was saying that his advice to all these companies that have so much cash is to start paying dividends because too much cash leads to ill-considered M&A that can blow up in their faces or in what we've seen recently, attracting scrutiny from regulators. But he says really it's a cultural issue more than an economic issue. And looking at the cross-asset look right now, the VIX is slightly higher here on the day. You're actually seeing yields higher just a bit here on the longer end of the curve, though lower for that 2-year yield. And as far as just the market technicals here, I was taking a look at the S&P 500, a 50-day moving average that sits right around 4,033, a big test of that right now as we get these closing numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average deep in the red, down by about 200 points or about 0.7% here on the day. The S&P 500 looks like it's going to close down by roughly 15 points or 0.4%. The Nasdaq remains the bright spot. It's been in the green for all day long, up on the day by about 0.5%. Meanwhile, the Russell 2000 lower by roughly 0.9% on the day, guys.
Yeah, and Romaine, definitely a negative tone. If you look at the S&P 500, most names in that index down, 410 to be exact, 92 to the upside, Scarlet, 1 unchanged, but really a lot of selling across the board here. And a lot of red when you look at the S&P 500's 24 industry groups as well. Let's start with the green because there's so few of them, right? Software and services, that's all Microsoft. Retail, mainly Amazon. Chip companies, you've got NVIDIA helping to lead the way along with Micron, and consumer services all eking into the green. On the downside, auto and components, transportation, utilities, a lot of cyclicals there. All right, so let's get to some of the individual names as we await those earnings. Some of the gainers, Microsoft, top in the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, highest level in more than a year, adding a record value amount to its market cap, and that's despite the UK blocking that Activision deal, at least for the moment. You know all the results. Third quarter beating expectations, strong cloud demand, so certainly outperformer. I'm curious, do you think that share reaction that we saw in Microsoft would have been as strong if the Activision deal had gone through? If it had gone through? Yes, Carol. You think there would have been disappointment that the deal went through? You mean dilution and so on?
Carol.
What?
Never mind. Move on.
No, wait, hold on. This is interesting. You're thinking that because it didn't go through, investors are cheering that and the stock is higher?
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
Why is that? What's the?
I don't know. I was asking Carol. I thought she
Sorry,
would have
I actually lost my IFB for a moment.
Oh, okay. So Carol just didn't hear me. Just go on, Carol.
Anyway, all right. So Microsoft certainly a standout performer. Forgive me there. Chipotle, top in the S&P 500 as well. This one was up 13% in today's session. First quarter sales and profit beat. Same store sales were a blowout number, almost 11% there, way outperforming. And they can still raise prices. That stock's up about 50% so far. And then you had PacWest Bancorp. That one was up about 7.5% here. We broke it down also after the close yesterday. Deposits stabilizing after it had a bunch of withdrawals in March. So you definitely saw some outperformance in that one. Scarlett, we got some earnings.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here with Roku, which is the leading streaming platform. It's what Maddie and I use to watch Succession every week. Roku reporting first quarter net revenue that beats analyst estimates, $741 million. The consensus estimate was $708 million. And if we look at the stock and how it's performing, is there a trade right now? It is at $58.99. It closed at $56.56. So yeah, it is moving higher right now. We only have that headline right now, but at least on the top line, this is a beat here for Roku.
All right, yeah. So Roku up about 6% here, but we are awaiting some other earnings. Of course, Meta is going to be interesting, whether it's the shift to the metaverse. But remember, last time around, some conviction in terms of the old business model. So we'll see whether or not that comes through ultimately, and how that helps in terms of the trade. In terms of what we're seeing in terms of tech trading, if you will. So Roku up about 4% here in today's session, as you said, in the aftermarket, and as you said, revenue looks like it did outperform.
Yeah.
And if you look at first quarter loss per share, that's $1.38. That's a little bit smaller. So we're going to have to dig into some of the details to see why there's some disappointment here. Maybe, folks want them to do even better.
Well, Roku's one of those companies that can earn money or make money both from advertising on its platform side through digital ad sales and also through the hardware sales of those consoles as well as the embedded software. So it's been in a good leading position, and of course it had a tremendous year in 2021 and maybe not so great a year in 2022 like everyone else. In terms of its forecast, it sees net revenue this quarter of about $770 million. That too is better than anticipated, which was $764 million, the consensus estimate there. So a beat on the top line for the quarter that ended, and a beat on the top line for what it sees going forward.
And now up 2%, and it was up about 40% 2023 so far.
Yeah, and it's such an important indicator when it comes to the advertising story as well, like you were both saying, Carol and Scar. And also, when we're talking about Roku, I just want to mention again, it looks like shares are gaining about 6% post-market after that revenue beating estimates. And I think that, this is big because we weren't expecting that, Romaine.
Yeah, we weren't expecting that. There, I think, are still some longer-term issues with how they've positioned themselves. Of course, that push into original content as well. It'll be interesting to see the type of guidance they give on that spend. I know that's something that I've been looking for here, whether they still think that that's worth it. Because remember, when they rolled it out, the market was a lot different. We talk about, a year or so ago, things have changed, and it'll be interesting to see whether there's pressure from investors to actually rein in some of that spending.
It costs a lot to make shows, quality TV shows.
Well, and they talk about this in the press release.
Which show are you talking about?
Succession.
Oh.
She's talking about Succession.
Our show, yeah, in our show.
They also say they're committed to delivering positive adjusted EBITDA for fiscal year 2024. So they're talking about kind of the outlook here. In the press release, they're also saying that they're managing investments and costs and executing on their plan to deliver that positive adjusted EBITDA.
All right, a few other earnings crossing the wires, guys. Let's go through them. Mattel, eBay, KLA-Tencor among the few. I'm going to start off here with eBay. Those shares crossing the wire right now. Continuing operations, adjusted EPS, $1.11. The street was looking for $1.07. That's a beat. Gross merchandise volume coming in at $18.4 billion. That's a slight beat over street consensus of $18.2. And your net revenue on the whole at about $2.5 billion. This is roughly a beat across the board, but minor beats to be sure. So we're going to just call this in line. The shares, you can see, unchanged right now. Their guidance, Scarlett, going forward here, 2Q net revenue also relatively in line, a range of 2.4 to about 2.5 billion.
All right, and we also are looking at Mattel, which is reporting a loss for the quarter. That was expected, losing 24 cents in the first quarter. Analysts were looking for a loss of 22 cents, so that's wider than expected. Net sales, a big beat here, $814 million versus the expected $756 million. And in terms of its outlook, it sees the full-year adjusted gross margin of about 47%, slightly higher than what analysts were looking for, which was just under 47%. And EBITDA for the full year, $900 to $950 million. Analysts were looking for $919 million. So if you take the midpoint of that range, it is higher than the consensus estimate that analysts were looking for there.
All right, let's go back to eBay just for a moment, because here's the red sticky. Second quarter net revenue, $2.47 billion to $2.54 billion. So giving you some indications of the outlook there. The estimate that's out there is $2.43 billion. So eBay's up 2.9%. Flip it on over to a chip name, semi-equipment company. KLA is out with their numbers. Third quarter adjusted EPS, $5.49. That is compared with the estimate of $5.25. So that is a beat. If you look at their third quarter revenue, also on the upside there, $2.43 billion. The estimate is for $2.36 billion. But we're seeing that stock under some pressure, down about 1.6% here. And this stock has been underperforming the stocks, Maddie.
And quickly going back to eBay, I also want to mention that the board has declared a cash dividend of 25 cents a share as well. Going back to your point earlier, Scarlett, what your guest was saying about companies having cash for these dividends and what they intend to do with that cash. Another interesting part of the eBay story.
Give it back to shareholders.
Yep. Yep. And
his words, not mine.
Well, and on the Mattel story too, I'm also interested because the stock is still up by about, I want to say 105% over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
That's still outperforming S&P returns. And then I have to mention the Barbie story because it's hitting every company. It's trending so hard right now. You have to wonder whether that has an impact.
You're talking about the Barbie movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a boon for Mattel. It's a boon for retailers that are picking up on the hot pink trend. I know it sounds silly, but
No,
we're
it doesn't
seeing
sound,
this everywhere.
No, it's not
It's in the
silly.
zeitgeist.
No, believe
in
me,
the
I
zeitgeist.
have this on the calendar here. There are not too many movies I'm excited about this year.
July
But after I saw that trailer,
2023,
I was
this Quad
all
Squad is
in.
going.
If there's anything to get me back into the theater, this is going to be it.
This is Romaine's must-see for 2023.
It is, and to Maddie's point too. I mean, the fact is that we're talking about Barbie in a way that we probably haven't been talking about that product in quite some time here, which is exactly the point of having movies like this.
Yeah, well, listen, that's what Mattel is doing. They're trying to take their actual toys and leverage it into content, and they are moving in a big way. I just want to mention some commentary from the CEO of KLA Corporation talking about a challenging industry environment. So we're going to watch some of these chip names because this is certainly a great indicator of the overall economy.
Yeah, well, speaking of chip names, I should point out we are still waiting for Meta earnings to cross. Wolfspeed did come out. Those shares are actually down about 8% right now, and I thought it was interesting here. Most of their main numbers, at least for the quarter, did actually beat, but some of the guidance that they gave was certainly a little bit soft, and there's been a lot of talk here about where we are in that chip equipment cycle here, whether we've sort of hit the trough or whether there's more to come here. Another indicator in the chip space that maybe there is still a little bit of pain out there.
All right, so we're, of course, still awaiting Meta, and I'm just looking at if there's any kind of movement here ahead of earnings. It's just up about 0.4%, but we'll wait for that company to certainly cross. All right, guys, that is a wrap, at least from us. Our cross-platform coverage, radio, TV, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals, Beyond the Bell. We'll see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.